Have you ever looked someone in the eye, someone who doubted you, disrespected you, maybe even betrayed you, and instead of reacting, you simply smiled, not out of kindness, out of clarity, because deep down you knew they underestimated the wrong person. In a world that glorifies outrage and noise, we're told to clap back, to prove ourselves, to fight for validation. But what if true strength lies in restraint? What if silence, held with discipline, is the most precise strike you can deliver? Machiavelli understood this. So did the Stoics. Power doesn't always reveal itself through volume. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, disguised as stillness, as composure, as the smile they can't decode. This isn't about pretending, it's about positioning. Stay with me, because what comes next may just change the way you see every conflict from here on out. The strength in silence. They don't hate you because you're weak. They hate you because you unsettle something inside them, something fragile, something they can't name or control. You disturb the comfortable illusion they've built for themselves, and so they watch, they wait, they provoke, not because they're powerful, but because they're desperate, desperate for relevance, desperate to feel that they matter. And in a world where attention equals worth, the easiest way to feel significant is to pull someone stronger into your chaos. That's what they want from you. Not clarity, not fairness, not truth, just your reaction. Because your reaction is the currency of power. The moment you explain yourself, the second you defend, argue, or retaliate, you've stepped into their arena, a stage they built, with rules they designed to make you lose. We're conditioned to believe that fighting back is strength, that silence is surrender. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Real strength is invisible. True power doesn't flinch. It doesn't justify. It doesn't perform. When you see the bait and choose not to bite, when you feel the fire rise in you and choose not to let it spill, that's the kind of power they'll never understand. Because enemies don't thrive on logic. They feed on chaos. They grow when you respond, even with truth. Because your attention tells them they matter. But when you don't engage, when you stay calm, grounded, and unbothered, you choke the oxygen out of their performance. You erase the stage they were hoping to dance on. Machiavelli understood this well. He wrote not just about confrontation, but about perception, about the quiet strategies that weaken your opponent without declaring war. And this is one of them. Let them feel victorious while you dismantle them with silence. Let them speak first. Speak loud and reveal everything. You say little, watch, listen, wait. That calm indifference isn't passivity. It's dominance sharpened through discipline. It's the weapon they never see, and the one they fear the most. Imagine this. You're in a meeting, sharing an idea you've worked on for weeks. Someone scoffs, interrupts, throws a passive-aggressive jab meant to undermine you. Most people would react, defend, clarify, or shoot back. But not you. You let the comment pass like wind. You pause. You smile not from weakness, but from total control. You finish your thought calmly, eyes steady, voice measured. The room notices not just your idea, but your composure. And the one who tried to rattle you, they're left exposed, loud, emotional, and surprisingly small. This is not about suppressing your truth. It's about owning your energy, not giving it to those who haven't earned the right to hold it. Because here's what most never realize. People who try to tear you down are rarely standing on stable ground. Their attacks aren't born from power. They come from insecurity dressed as boldness. Their goal is not to defeat you, it's to get a rise out of you. Because that rise is what feeds them. That's what keeps you trapped in their game. But when you don't react, when you offer them no flame, no echo, no resistance, you take that power back, quietly, completely. And that's when the transformation begins. You stop performing for critics. You stop lowering yourself just to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop arguing with people who confuse noise with relevance. Your peace becomes your shield. Your silence becomes your weapon. And your stillness, that's the blow they never recover from. So let them talk. Let them twist your words. Question your intent. Mock your path. Let them write stories in rooms you'll never enter, because none of it changes your truth. None of it touches the work you're doing in silence. Remember, you don't owe them your fire. You don't owe them your time. You don't owe them your voice, especially when that voice is building something far greater than their chaos can touch. Your silence isn't weakness. It's calculation. Your indifference isn't apathy. It's strategy. And your restraint, that's the blow that lands hardest, the punishment they never see coming, but never forget. Machiavelli called it power. The Stoics call it freedom. You can call it yours. Silent revenge is mastery. We've been conditioned to believe that revenge must be loud, that it must burn hot, strike fast, and leave scars. From childhood tales to modern drama, we're taught that if someone wrongs you, the only way to reclaim your worth is to respond forcefully, visibly, immediately. But this is a myth built for the impulsive. Real power doesn't burn out in a blaze. It doesn't scream across the battlefield. It moves slowly, deliberately, like a shadow at dusk. The kind of revenge that truly endures doesn't announce itself. It unfolds quietly, with surgical precision, long after your enemies have stopped watching. Because here's the truth. Revenge is not about destruction. It's about dominion. Dominion over your emotions, over your impulses, and most importantly, over the story they tried to write for you. Anyone can rage. Anyone can lash out, but to absorb the insult without collapse, to remain steady while your name is dragged through the dirt, that's strength, that's stoic. That's the moment your transformation begins, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of design. Let them talk, let them scoff while you build, let them gather around the false victory they believe they've won. Because while they waste time validating themselves through gossip and noise, you are crafting the one thing they never expected, a return written not in words, but in undeniable presence. The kind of presence that speaks without speaking, the kind that walks into a room and silences every whisper, every lie, every doubt, not by argument, but by becoming everything they tried to say you'd never be. Machiavelli understood this well. He once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But what if you could be neither and still win? What if you could remain emotionally neutral, tactically silent, and yet still dismantle your enemies not by reacting, but by evolving?" That is the essence of invisible attack, not to dominate with force, but to make yourself unshakable, unreadable, untouchable, because when they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. And when you return, refined, elevated, undeniable, they'll find themselves speaking to someone who no longer even hears them. Take a familiar scene. They betrayed you, lied about you, tarnished your name. You don't defend. You don't beg to be understood. You simply disappear, not out of retreat, but to rebuild in silence. Then, one day, you walk into that same room, but you don't enter with revenge on your lips. You enter with composure in your posture, clarity in your eyes, and success etched into every word you don't say. And in that moment, you've said everything. Without even trying, you've reminded them of the one truth they feared the most, that their opinion of you never mattered, that they never had control, that their relevance ended the moment you stopped reacting. This is not passive, it's power at its purest, because when you master silence, you master perception. You shift from defending your worth to demonstrating it. You stop trying to prove a point and become the point. Revenge, in its highest form, is not about making someone hurt. It's about making their noise irrelevant to your peace, their chaos uninvited to your clarity. That is how you win without battle. That is how you rise without roar. So the next time they mock you, underestimate you, or try to write your ending, don't explain. Don't chase closure. Don't return to old wars for the sake of wounded pride. Instead, smile, build, return, not to settle a score, but to show them what real power looks like when it moves in silence and wins. Power is quiet. To the shallow eye, silence can look like surrender, not clapping back, not defending your name. That must mean you've lost. But those who've truly studied power, not just noise, know the opposite is true. History is filled with men and women who mastered the art of invisible retaliation, who didn't fight for attention, but for impact. And while the world shouted, they built legacies so profound, the echo of their quiet strength still shapes us today. Take Abraham Lincoln. During his presidency, he wasn't just criticized, he was humiliated, even by those in his own camp. Political enemies mocked his appearance, questioned his intellect, and worked against him in public. But Lincoln didn't return fire. He didn't waste time proving his worth with speeches of vengeance. Instead, he extended an unexpected hand. He invited many of his harshest critics into his cabinet. Why? Because he understood a principle deeper than pride. If you want to disarm your rival, make them feel needed. Let them invest in the vision they once tried to sabotage. That's not passivity, that's surgical control. And when the dust settled, Lincoln didn't just lead a nation through war. He rebuilt it, not with spite, but with strategy. Fast forward to the boardrooms of the 21st century. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, was once the punchline of late-night jokes. They laughed at his voice, mocked his business model, called his ambitions delusional. But while they laughed, he optimized. While they judged, he adjusted. Bezos didn't clap back at critics. He built systems, perfected logistics, scaled relentlessly. Today, he doesn't just run a company. He redefined how the world buys, reads, and even thinks about time. And those critics silenced not by argument, but by irrelevance. Then there's Mahatma Gandhi, the quiet hurricane that shook an empire. The British authorities tried everything: violence, prisons, public humiliation. But Gandhi didn't scream. He didn't retaliate. He practiced silence as defiance, calm as confrontation. His restraint didn't make him weak. It made his enemies unravel. Because when you don't respond with hate, you expose the emptiness of theirs. And in the end, the empire cracked not from war, but from the unbearable weight of its own moral failure. Even on the football pitch, this principle lives. Cristiano Ronaldo is adored by millions and jeered by millions more. He's taunted, doubted, booed in rival stadiums, but he doesn't respond with interviews. He responds with precision, with goals, with consistency so brutal it leaves no room for doubt. He lets the scoreboard speak in a language even the loudest critic can't argue with. What do all these examples show us? That the strongest don't react, they redirect. They channel humiliation into fuel, insult into focus, opposition into opportunity. They don't waste their time proving their worth. They live it. they become it. And in doing so, they force the world to adjust. So what does this mean for you? It means that when you're attacked, misunderstood, underestimated, your job isn't to shout back. It's to stay the course. It's to keep building, keep growing, keep showing up with calm consistency. Every time you stay grounded when they expect rage, every time you show excellence when they expected collapse, you're playing the long game. You're walking the path of giants. The Stoics taught us that power isn't about domination. It's about discipline, the power to pause, the power to see clearly when others panic. So, the next time someone tries to pull you into the mud, ask yourself, do I want to win the moment, or do I want to own the outcome? Because the legacy that lasts isn't the one that yells the loudest. It's the one that builds in silence and is too strong to ignore. The unreadable smile as control. There is a kind of smile that doesn't just soften a face. It seizes a room. Not the kind you give for politeness, nor the cheerful grin you wear in passing. No, this one is quieter, slower, born not from joy, but from composure. It surfaces at the precise moment someone tries to provoke you and fails. It doesn't scream. It doesn't defend. It simply is. And in its stillness, it communicates something no outburst ever could control. Most people think power needs volume, that it shows up through titles, wealth, or intimidation. But those things are noisy, fragile, dependent on attention. True power is subtle. It appears in pressure-filled moments when others explode. You remain centered. When they try to rattle you, you blink slowly. When they insult you, you offer a calm, unreadable smile, not to mock, but to signal a higher ground they can't access. Because as the Stoics knew well, if someone can provoke you, they can own you. And if they can read your face, they can predict your next move. The moment you respond with emotion, you give your enemy a gift, confirmation, proof that they've gotten under your skin, that their gossip, their sarcasm, their passive aggression landed. That's when you become transparent, reactive, weak. But the strategic smile, the one that reveals nothing and commands everything, it breaks their pattern. They throw fire, but there's no burn. They expect a storm, and all they get is silence, stillness. That's unsettling. That's power. It's a paradox most people can't comprehend. How can you smile when being targeted? How can you stay calm while being insulted, misunderstood, or disrespected? That's exactly why it works. When you remain unfazed in moments where others would erupt, you flip the dynamic. You plant doubt. You force your opponent to question themselves. Why didn't it work? Why didn't they flinch? And in that uncertainty, you reclaim the ground they tried to take. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Someone tries to undermine you publicly. All eyes are on you, waiting for a comeback. But instead of defending, you pause. You hold your posture. And then you offer a calm, measured smile, not one of submission, but of complete ownership. You don't need to fight. You've already won. Because while they played for attention, you held the room without saying a word. That moment shifts the entire atmosphere, not because you responded, but because you didn't need to. That smile becomes more than an expression. It becomes a mirror. It reflects all of their bitterness, their aggression, their insecurity back onto themselves. They're left standing alone with their anger, with no reaction to feed off of. And that emptiness is what breaks them. Because nothing is more destabilizing than realizing your opponent isn't playing your game. They've transcended it in every arena: business, relationships, politics, even family dynamics. The person who keeps their cool, who speaks last and speaks less, commands the room. Their words carry weight not because they're loud, but because they're earned. Their silence isn't absence, it's presence. Their smile, not happiness but mental sovereignty. So, the next time someone aims to drag you into the dirt with drama, gossip, or manipulation, don't engage, don't perform, don't react. Just smile. Let them sit in their confusion. Let them spin their theories, because when you master that smile, that unreadable, grounded, sovereign expression, you no longer dance in their chaos. You become the calm that outlasts it. You become the one thing they can't provoke, unshakable. Let their hate build you. Here's a truth that few have the courage to accept. Hate, in its purest form, is a hidden advantage. It's not the kind of gift wrapped in praise or smiles. It's jagged, bitter, often cruel. But if you unpack it with wisdom, not emotion, you'll see its value, because hate always reveals more about the one who gives it than the one who receives it. Their anger, a signal of their insecurity, their obsession, a reflection of your presence. Their bitterness, a quiet admission that your existence unsettles them. Most importantly, hate is energy, and energy, when redirected with precision, becomes power. You don't need to run from it. You don't need to defend yourself against it. You certainly don't need to return it. All you need to do is convert it. Let their heat forge your edge. Let their attention feed your discipline. Their insults become reminders. Their doubts become deadlines. Their resistance becomes the pressure you train under, until your resilience becomes immovable. And while they're fixated on bringing you down, you're quietly building something they'll never understand, because they're too distracted by your shadow to see your rise. You're living rent-free in their minds, and yet you move freely, untouched, unbothered, unfazed. That's the irony. Those who tried to stop you become your greatest motivation, not because their words mattered, but because your response to their hate redefined your path. But this transformation only happens if you remember one essential truth. Hate only has power when you hand it direction, if you let it seep into your self-worth. It will rot everything from the inside out, but if you face it with clarity and silence, it becomes weight, and like all weight, it can be lifted, repeatedly, until you grow stronger than they ever imagined. I've lived this. Betrayed by someone I once trusted completely. Their lies, their smear campaign, their subtle sabotage, it cut deep. But I didn't retaliate. I didn't chase justice or sympathy. I sat in silence, and I built. Every rumor became fuel, every whisper, another brick in the foundation of my return. And when I re-emerged sharper, clearer, untouchable, they had no response. Because I didn't just survive their hate, I used it. That's the Stoic way. You don't always have to clap back. You don't always need to fight. Sometimes the highest form of power is to outgrow the insult, outbuild the attack, and outlast the noise. Let their hate become your discipline. Let it drive you to wake up earlier, think deeper, move smarter, and love yourself harder. Because in the end, your legacy won't be written by those who cheered you on. It'll be carved by how you moved through resistance, how you stood when they wanted you to fall, and how you smiled, not because you were unaffected, but because you were in control. So the next time someone sends bitterness your way, don't flinch, don't shrink, just nod, smile, and silently say, "Thank you, you've just given me fuel. Now, watch what I do with it." Stop reacting. Start ruling. At some point, the question stops being about them and starts being about you. After all the noise, the betrayal, the provocation, the real battle is not external, it's internal. And the question is simple, but brutal. Are you still letting them decide how you move? Because the truth is, you don't need to answer every critic. You don't need to engage every insult. You don't need to wage war with every person who misunderstands you. That is not strength, that is distraction. You are not a puppet tangled in the strings of someone else's bitterness. You are not a reaction. You are not defined by their projections or their assumptions. And the moment you truly accept that, your entire life shifts. You stop wasting breath trying to convince people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop offering your energy to dead-end conversations and invisible wars. You stop confusing revenge with validation and begin to understand a deeper law. The highest form of revenge is no revenge at all, because the day you can walk past the person who tried to ruin you with no hatred, no fear, and no disturbance in your peace, you've already won. They don't need to fall for you to rise. And when they throw fire and you offer stillness, when they demand chaos and you bring calm, you're not retreating, you're commanding. You're showing them that your emotions are not a service. Your energy is not available on demand. Your worth is not up for negotiation. Here's a hard truth: if someone's hatred can still break your focus, you're not free yet. If their opinion can still shrink your presence, you've handed it fast to your influence. But when you can witness the smear, feel the sting, hear the lie and remain centered, you've moved beyond control. You've transcended the need to respond. That's the goal, isn't it? Not to live proving people wrong, but to live so fully, so intentionally, that their hate has nowhere left to land, that their games end, not because you beat them, but because you stopped playing. So if you've been caught in the loop defending, justifying, retaliating, pause, breathe, reclaim your power. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose growth over noise. Choose stillness, not as surrender, but as strategy. Let the world talk. You have more important things to build. Let your calm speak louder than their chaos. Let your discipline speak louder than their doubt. Let your silence carry the weight of power they'll never understand. You are untouchable, not because you fight harder, but because you've mastered the art of not needing to. That is invisible strength. That is the quiet game of power. If this spoke to something deep within you, subscribe and stay close. Your next transformation may be one decision away. In the comments, write silent power and carry it with you. You don't need to prove anything. You're already becoming.